Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing a toasting Rhynocs and talking mental health video, and this one is very improv. While I never script my mental health videos out completely, I usually have roughly an idea of the stories I want to tell and the things I want to say, but today I just felt a topic land on my heart that needed to be a little bit more flexible and a little bit more improv. So if I go too far off topic, just know that I will do my best to correct it in editing and try to keep the video clean. So today's topic is cutting out people who are bad for your mental health. And let's let Bianca pass real quick. Speaking of, I'm just kidding. Bianca has a great character arc. But anyway, I know this is a very common topic for better or worse these days. You know, we kind of live in a culture that is counteracting the idea that we need to just be quiet and be okay with certain people because they're family or because we've been friends with them for a long time. And we're counteracting that with, you know, this empowering idea that we don't have to keep them in our lives and we can just cut people out. And I agree with that 100%. However, I want to talk about my own experiences with coming to that realization and how I wish that I had maybe done things differently than I did and why. So let's dive into that. Yes, that's probably what I looked like when I cut most of these people out. But so I have always been a bit is an understatement. I've been conflict adverse, very avoidant of confrontation, okay? I was raised an only child with two parents who never fought. I know, humble brag. But when I say that, I mean, like, it was just a very passive household, which is good in many ways, and it's made me who I am today, but in other ways, it's because I think my parents and then also myself are and were the type of people to handle things quietly, and sometimes handling things quietly turns into internalizing your feelings. So, because I have been like that, and that's been just a common theme in my life, I am bad to hold things in and then kind of just explode, and the person that I'm upset with has absolutely no idea where I'm coming from. I forgot that I can hover because I'm playing Spyro 3. So it's basically, it was like a holding it in so much that it becomes way more damaging and way more explosive than it should. And yeah, that is the way that I cut a lot of people out, because I spent most of my life in the quiet internalizing phase. Then when I got older, went to college, got educated, found out that the norm is not what I thought it was. It is not to just be okay with people having certain opinions or certain views, or, you know, it's okay to not be okay with people denying very serious problems. I'm speaking broadly right now, but I'll get into more detail. I then was filled with rage because my whole life I had like set on a lot of uncomfortable feelings to keep peace, and then I find out that like I don't have to, you know? So it essentially a lot of conflicts I ended up having as I got older came to terms with who I am, which is a big one. I can link the homophobia video here that I did recently. When I realized that some of the ways I had been treated by family members and some of the ways they viewed things that had happened to me, like that was not okay, and it was really damaging to my mental health. Once I realized all this stuff, I started just ghosting people. Like, I didn't have a conversation as to why, and I didn't tell them, you know, why I was cutting them out or why I was never talking to them again. I kind of just used the scissors and cut the page from the book, okay? And this sounds fine probably to a lot of you because we are taught with this new, you know, empowerment kind of movement, I guess you would say. I'm speaking broadly, but like we are taught that like we don't owe people explanations. But that's not why I'm talking about this. It's not because we owe people explanations. It's because of what came after and what still comes after for me because I didn't get closure or have the final conversation and say why I was uncomfortable. I just left. And that is a lot of anxiety and discomfort, especially in my subconscious. So I have talked before about how I have PTSD. I do plan on getting into that more in another part, but for now, I'll just say that I have very vivid dreams and nightmares. I also have TMJ because I grind my teeth really badly because I'm always having vivid dreams and nightmares. And in a lot of those anxiety dreams and nightmares, I am dealing with people that I didn't get closure with. I'm not even always talking about just messages either, although that is one way of getting closure, but I think for certain people in my life, it needed to be in person because I mostly spoke to them in person, if that makes sense. Like, there were certain family members that I cut out, and then later on I decided I would get closure with and tried to talk to them through messaging, and then it still didn't hit. I still have anxiety dreams about, like, the unfinished business, the unfinished conversation, the unsaid. And I guess the main reason I wanted to make this video is to kind of talk about that nuance. Like, not everybody needs the closure. So I do think it is absolutely possible to just cut certain people out. There are different types of relationships too. There are certain relationships where I don't feel like I needed to have that type of closure, either because I found out that the person wasn't who I thought they were, and I was it felt like a clean cut, I guess you could say, or, you know, maybe I wasn't very close with that person at all anyway. I was just kind of chatting with them, and then I found out they were, like, icky, and so I just cut them out. There are different situations where the closure isn't needed, but some, and the ones I've noticed the most are ones that usually have ties to my childhood, and that, like, they're people I've been around my whole life and have been in person with a lot. So yeah, this doesn't apply to every relationship, and it doesn't apply to everyone. I just wanted to talk about it because I feel like one of the biggest struggles I have in life is getting lost in, like, black and white thinking. And one of the biggest coming of age experiences I've had as a young adult from now my true adulthood, because I'm about to turn 30, so like my 20s to 30s, is finding the gray area in a lot of the ways of thinking that I've had and that, you know, I just kind of grew up with. So yeah, so getting back to the main topic, right? We're talking about cutting people out because they're bad for your mental health. So I think that unfortunately there are situations where you are not safe to get the closure you need. You're not safe to tell the person why. You're not safe to give them a chance and ask them, you know, what they really think about something or why that they feel the way they do, and you're not safe or comfortable having that conversation. And those instances are different, and I think we unfortunately don't have a choice, and we have to find our own closure. And maybe the anxiety dreams don't stop, I don't know, because I've decided to do that with people too, and I still have those subconscious dreams of, like, the lack of the closure and, like, what I want to really say that I'm not getting to say. But sometimes the person is just not, you know, maybe stable enough or safe enough to be able to have that conversation, or maybe that conversation, maybe they don't want to have it, and you don't get the closure because they don't want to have it. And that's a whole other thing, but you still have to, at the end of the day, cut them out for your own well-being, and you can't just, you know, keep them around because you don't want to deal with the lack of the closure. So yeah, those are like absolutely situations that can happen. I think for me, a lot of why I've avoided conflict and I've avoided those conversations is because usually the reasons that the people are bad for me and bad for my mental health feel like rejection. It feels like I already know what they think, and if I cut them out, I don't have to worry about it, but I also don't have to hear them say it. And I think that's the hard part. And this one's kind of all over the place because I'm kind of figuring it out as I talk about it. It feels like this is a therapeutic episode, but I have cut people out, mostly excommunicated family members, because I feel like I know that if I were to try and sit down and have a conversation with them, that it would not go the way I need it to, and that it would be even more painful and upsetting than it was to just let them go and cut them off and just move on with my life. I will give an example. I'll be vulnerable today, and I will give an example now that we've made it this far through the video. And like the main thing I have in mind right now is, and I will get more into the specific details in another episode, but I have some family members that I cut out because they were extended family members, not immediate, so it's not parents or siblings or anything like that, which I am an only child anyway, but I have family members that I cut out because someone in their part of my extended family sexually abused me when I was a child. This person was a teenager when it happened. A lot of people consider that they were a kid too. I'm not going to get into the debate of that or if it matters or not. The point is that it was a very traumatic experience for me, and it was also done very violently. And I will just say, and sorry, I'll put a trigger warning up on the screen before we get here, because I do think that sexual abuse and sexual assault certainly warrants a trigger warning. I struggled with this my whole life because that part of the family would still talk about this person who did it to me, and I didn't know necessarily if everyone in that part of the family knew that it happened. I just assumed that they probably did know. It almost felt like a betrayal every time that this one specific person would talk about him, the guy that did it, like, positively, or just talk about him casually. It felt like, I remember thinking, like, do you even love me? Like, why are you talking about this person in front of me if you know what they did? And I don't have proof that they knew then. I do know that they know now, and unfortunately, nothing has changed. I've never heard confirmation directly from this person that they believe me. They talk about the person who sexually abused me in a positive light all the time, and they seem to be around them a lot. So it's one of those things where I don't know if it's a situation of denial, if it's a downplaying thing where they just don't believe it is a big enough deal to cut someone out, if it is one of those things that they think is just, you know, it was a childhood thing and that this person is not like that anymore and it has outgrown it, which I know isn't true because I've heard multiple people say that he has done it to other people as he's gotten older. But yeah, that was one of the hardest things for me, and I remember instead of saying anything, I literally just blocked this person and their entire family, but I feel like there was one person that it was just harder for me with because of the relationship I felt like I had with them as a kid, growing up and just, you know, being too selfless and protecting other people, you know, me feeling like, you know, I needed to just keep this buried inside of me, and that, you know, it wasn't as big of a deal as it actually was, and I could still love people who loved the person who abused me. Like, I kind of just, as a kid, didn't really understand that I didn't have to do that, and that that wasn't okay, and it was actually very hurtful that the people who enabled this guy were claiming to love me too. That's mind-blowing to me. But anyway, this all ties into the whole cutting out people who are bad for our mental health and the lack of closure topic that we're focused on, in the way that I did go back later and say what I needed to say to this person via a message, but then I just instantly blocked them because I was scared of their response. So that happened, and then I waited a few more years and did have a little bit more of a conversation. I kind of had a bit of a mental breakdown. I sent this person, the person that I had cut out, an audio message really explaining my feelings and crying and being pretty vulnerable. And I offered that if, she wanted to talk about it, that maybe we could do a phone call or something. And all that she said back was that I was welcome to call her anytime, and she gave me her number, and then I just never did. And I think it's because I know that there's going to be some sort of trying to play both sides mark there, and I know that it's not possible. I know it is not possible for me to be close with this person and them also be close with the guy who sexually abused me. I just can't do it. But what gets complicated about it is this is a family member. This is a family member I grew up with. And you look back on all the innocent moments of your lives as kids, and you think, you loved that person. It wasn't just like, this is my family member, I'm hanging out with them because I have to. It was like, you genuinely cared for this person for a long time, and then you found out that you can't have them around anymore. And I think a lot of the black and white thinking and a lot of the cut people out of your life culture, we kind of just why are these guys so freaking loud? Why are they so loud? Oh my god. Dude, I need a minute. I'm trying to do a podcast right now. How rude. Jeez. Anyway, we think that we cut people out and then we just don't love them anymore, or we cut people out and we just don't care about their well-being anymore, and unfortunately that is not true. And that was one of the main things I wanted to talk about today, is that we can cut people out and still care about them. We can cut people out and still worry about them. We can cut people out and still hope the best for them. But it doesn't mean it's our responsibility to be the person who's there for them, or to be the person who tries to help them, because if they don't return that to us, then it's not healthy. And it's not that we should be seeking out relationships that solely benefit us, and it's not that we shouldn't do things for other people just because. It's not like we need something in return. That's not what I'm talking about here. It's more so the fact that I already have proof and know that if I needed the support, I wasn't going to get it from this person, because this person wasn't going to take something that I take seriously to the same extent that I do. It's just a complete disconnect, and and it doesn't matter why. I've tried to figure out, why is it? Has this person experienced the same thing and they're in denial about their own, so they don't even want to think about it and they want to just live in oblivion? Is it that they do believe that it's a thing and they just don't think it's that big of a deal? Which that option is terrible to me. It's the worst thing ever. I'm how could you? I can't fathom it. I can't fathom it. And I don't know. I could have more compassion for the first option, that it could be had a similar experience, is in denial about it. Okay, I see that happen a lot, but I just don't know, and I've kind of had to come to terms with not knowing. So yeah, this is a complicated topic. I'm all over the place with it because clearly it's gray, and when things are gray, I have a very hard time discussing them because I can see so many potential different ways of handling things, so many different potential outcomes. I still don't know to this day if it would like be better for me to try to have that conversation, to take advantage of you know, the offer to have the phone call and just know, even though I know I know. It's almost like there's, I think inner child parts of us have a harder time with um closing doors on people. I think that like inner children, like they need to have the conversation, they need to know, and then like even if I myself feel okay with just cutting the ties and dipping out, I think there are younger parts of me who are like, where did this person go? Why doesn't this person love me anymore? That they feel like abandoned. And it's really sad actually when you think of it that way and you look at it like that. But anyway, I don't know. You know, sometimes I'm like, would the dream stop if I just have the conversation and let the pain happen and let the confrontation and the discourse happen and like move through it and then move on and be okay with the fact that it didn't go the way that younger me wanted it to go? I don't know, but I'm kind of just... This is just one example, I have plenty, but it's the one that I'm thinking of right now. So, you know, it's one of those things that I just have to kind of talk about, trust that if the conversation needs to happen, it will happen when it needs to happen, and it's not fully in my hands. And then I can just keep working through these emotions in therapy without that conversation. But there's never... it never gets easier, right? Like, if I had just done this from the beginning, if I had had the hard conversation from the start, all these years later, I may not be here wondering if I need to try to go back to it, or if I should just let it go at this point. And I'm not like crapping on my younger self for that. It's just, I think it's something important to talk about that we can all talk about. Maybe some can relate more than others. I know people who have absolutely no problem confronting people. My wife is one of them. She can literally tell anyone pretty much anything that bothers her and just have the conversation because she's not afraid of a negative reaction, at least not to the extent that I am. I think like me caring so much about what people think of me, even though I claim most days that I don't care that much anymore, it's an ingrained part of me that I've had to really battle. I've always cared so much about upsetting other people, caring or like caring about what people think of me, and I think that might be why I have a hard time with this sort of stuff. Even though I ultimately, in the end, will do what's best for me as an individual, it doesn't mean it's easy or that I can just do it so easily like it might look like I can. So yeah, overall, that was just a topic that I wanted to get out and discuss. I'm curious if any of you have had issues with the same thing. And we'll kind of recap here. So part of it is, you know, have you ever had someone who you've had to cut out in your life, first of all? Has that ever been a thing that you've had to do for your own mental health? The other question is, have you ever wished you could go back and change the way you reacted to something because of how it affected your mental health in the future? Because of how the way you handled it didn't really resolve the issue fully. Is that something you've ever experienced? And then I guess the last question would be, how do you handle confrontation? Are you conflict adverse? Do you kind of steer away from it? Or is conflict something that you feel like you're too confrontational and you need to kind of back up? Or are you kind of in the middle where you'll have it when you need to, but like you're not going to just go fight people for the sake of fighting people? I'm curious. I would love to talk to all of you, see what you think, what your opinions are, because I don't know that there's a right answer. I think this is a very gray topic. It's a very gray subject matter, and I think we've just been trained recently to think it's black and white because of the conversation that goes on in the world right now, which is cut people out if you don't need them, you know? And we just don't Like, we went from, like, tolerating it to just disappearing, and I think there's, like, there probably is a happy medium somewhere in there, but what is it? I don't know. You let me know in the comment section. So thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you're enjoying this content, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more. There will also be some interview parts of Toasting Gnorcs and Talking Mental Health on the channel. Whether this one might be up before any of those, but we did have Connor David on before to talk about autism, which was really cool. So I'll put that in the cards. But yeah, and join the Discord server if you're interested in even more updates on my channel, or if you're interested in being on Toasting Gnorcs and Talking Mental Health. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.